coming to our June Lunch and Learn. Today we have Stella Wixom here to give us a presentation. And Stella Wixom, she's the Executive Director of the Business Engagement Center. She oversees the campus-wide strategy for corporate relations at the University of Michigan and works as a direct liaison between the business community and the university to identify corporate partnerships, opportunities, and match university assets to industry needs. Before joining the Business Engagement Center, Stella was the International Sales Director at CFI Group, and prior to that worked for Nortel Networks. During her tenure in a variety of senior management roles in marketing, sales, and customer service, she acted as a strategic university team leader and served as corporate liaison to the University of Michigan. Stella is an alumna of the University of Michigan and currently serves on the board of directors for the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti Regional Chamber and is co-chair of SPARK's Business Development Committee. She's here today to share how we as research administrators can support faculty as they engage with industry partners and pursue commercial endeavors. So if you guys give a round of applause for Stella to thank her for being here. Her presentation is called Partner Parish, a Holistic Approach to Corporate Relations. So Stella, you can come on.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me back there? I wanted to make sure, because I wasn't sure you could hear. So as introduced, I'm Stella Wixom. The Business Engagement Center was founded back in 2007. And it was founded by Mary Sue Coleman and Steve Forrest and Jerry May, actually, and lots of folks trying to figure out how we can be more available and make it easier for companies to do business with the University of Michigan. And I did want to mention also Sheila Waterhouse is here with me today. She's our communications director and helped put all this together. So, and I appreciate the opportunity to come talk with you because the research administrators are, as I know and as all of us know, critical to the work the faculty are doing and how they can get their contracts and work with ORSP and all of that. So my goal today is to talk to you about what we do with corporations and how we can potentially partner with you or be a resource for you when your faculty are working with companies. So as I started to mention, so we were started in 2007. And the main reason was to make sure that we were easy for companies to navigate. As we all know, 19 schools and colleges, 3 campuses, 22 career offices. If you say a topic like, data science, you could touch 5 different schools and institutes. So really difficult for companies to navigate. So the idea being, let's make it easier for them to do business. And the main thing that was also happening at the time and seems to be happening again is some concern about the federal government funding and the availability from agencies like NSF and NIH and such to continue to fund our research. And as we all know, U of M is very federally rich when it comes to research engagement for the federal government. And then we also need to work with corporations, not just to have additional sources for funding for research, but also all the great innovations that come out of the university. Somebody has to get those to market because it's great if our faculty find all these great solutions to problems and vaccines and medicine, but if you can't get it to the people, if you can't get it out in the marketplace, it's really not going to serve the public good as we are intended to do, and you need companies to help commercialize and get those products and services out. So they're a really important constituent from that perspective as well. So the main reason that companies come to Michigan is for our students. That is the main driver for why they come. And we're very fortunate in that we have over 100 programs in the top 10. We've got graduate students, undergrad, we've got student project opportunities, lots of ways that companies can work with our students and recruit them. And as I mentioned, we have 22 career offices, so helping them navigate where those offices are and how they can get access to the students, critically important. And so this is just trying to show that these are the main areas in which we work with companies, but I wanted to specifically call out the student piece because I think, all of us in the room today are thinking about the research. But I just want you to know that really that talent pipeline and that diverse talent pipeline is really important to the companies we work with. The faculty research, of course, they all want to work with, not they all, many of them want to work with faculty on research. And we'll talk a little bit about how it's different when working with a company versus with the federal government, the licensing of technology that I mentioned, and philanthropy. So we're also corporate fundraisers. So that's, you'll see a chart in a minute about the fact that we report into development as well. And so the companies, unlike a lot of the very generous alums and grateful patients and all of those that support the university philanthropically, companies are a little different. They don't do it because they're passionate about the institution, because what it meant to their career, what it meant to their sick child. They're interested in doing philanthropy to advance their mission. So we call it strategic philanthropy, because the philanthropy they do is to create their brand on campus for students, or do a professorship or fellowship because they're trying to, again, create their brand with the faculty, with that population of graduate students. Recently, you saw, hopefully, that Ford Motor Company has put their name on a building at the College of Engineering, the robotics building, and that was met with mixed reviews internally at U of M. Some people were concerned that, well, does everybody have to work on Ford stuff if you're in that building? Or are they going to have some inappropriate or over, access to, anything that happens in robotics? And the thing is, the reason the company did it is because they fund most of their autonomous vehicle work at the University of Michigan. They also hire a lot from the University of Michigan, and they're going to co-locate 100 of their engineers here, and that will actually grow the engagement and help them create their brand. And it was a business decision for them. They could build another building for all these engineers or find places for them. And it really, in our mind, at the Business Engagement Center, and I think at the university level, really said that's really the deepest kind of partnership and strategic relationship you can have with a company. We're very fortunate that we have a lot of alums that are very philanthropic, and there's more people's names on buildings than some of the other campuses where they do a little bit more with companies. We're very fortunate in that we have a lot of wonderful alums and benefactors that really support the university. The other thing I want to mention on this chart, because I think it's really important, we were talking a little bit earlier about this, we call ourselves the front door and a point of contact for companies to come in. But I think it's really important that all of you understand that it's not the only way, nor are we the gatekeeper for any of your faculty that are working with companies. There are a lot of partnerships and a lot of engagement that are happening with your faculty directly with companies, and that's great. If we can be a resource for you to help with that at all, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's not like, oh my God, you're not working with the Business Engagement Center, we need to report this activity to the Business Engagement Center. No, if you let us know, it's great for us to know, because maybe there's more ways we can work with that company beyond just that one faculty interaction. But when we first were started, a lot of faculty were a little concerned we were going to kind of insert ourselves in that process. And, God forbid, we might, take some of the money away from the work that they're doing with the company and either spend it somewhere else or whatever. And I just want to make sure all of you are clear that we embrace those relationships. We think it's great. Any kind of corporate engagement across the university is wonderful with companies, and we're a resource if you or your faculty need it, but it's not a gatekeeper function that we have. So these are kind of some of the examples about how we support faculty and students working with companies. As I mentioned, was the hiring piece, the student interest that companies have for having students work on a challenging problem that they have as a way of a capstone project, or maybe a MAP program at the business school, or an MDP multidisciplinary program. It could be that they just want to do straight recruiting. We work with the companies to host visits, so we often will invite faculty to come have conversations with the company to see if there's a match in the kind of work the company needs done and the work that the faculty are doing. We work with ORSP and OTT on master research agreements. Many of the companies want to work with multiple schools and colleges, or they want to work with multiple faculty. They don't want to do a contract for every transaction that they have. As we all know, that can be a long process. So when we know that they're going to commit to a certain dollar amount over a multi-year and they're going to work with either multiple faculty or multiple schools and colleges, a master research agreement just makes life easier for everybody. And typically when they're doing a master research agreement, most of the time they're fine with our terms and conditions. Sometimes they request some different consideration for intellectual property. And that's why we work very closely with our tech transfer office and with ORSP to make sure that we have those conversations up front, because the companies need to know what they're going to get when the work is over, not only just the product that's developed in the research, but also if there's any intellectual property that comes out of it, who owns what, and what's the transaction going to look like. So when we get to that point, nobody has any surprises. We work also with when there's large center grants, and the federal government wants companies to say that they support the work that's being done in that center and would support the commercialization of that activity. The federal government, of course, being good stewards of our tax dollars, are trying to make sure that the centers they support have a function in life as far as, beyond the center, not just, again, to do the research, but that it's helping all the constituents of the United States. And so when we have companies that can do letters of support, that helps support and differentiate that proposal to that agency to know that Ford and Agilent Technologies and Procter & Gamble all see that what this center is going to do has applicability in the real world. We do work with companies on philanthropy, as I mentioned earlier, and the main thing we try to do is bring together the faculty and the companies to find win-win partnerships. And one of the things that we hope to be a resource for you and your faculty is to help translate how working with a company is different than working with a federal agency. This will show you where we fit in with the organization. So as I mentioned, we report into both development and research, which really is, I think, our differentiator as a corporate relations office compared to how other academic units, other academic institutions do this, because this really gives us that ability to talk to companies about, hiring a student all the way to strategic philanthropy and everything in between. So I'm sure you recognize Daryl's name from the research side. Daryl actually started the Business Engagement Center. So he hired me in 2008, and he started in 2007, and then moved on to ORSP, and then I was fortunate to be promoted to the executive director for the BEC. And then Dondi Cup on the development side. I don't know if many of you know Dondi, but he has responsibility for the Business Engagement Center also. And again, that gives us the ability to have that holistic look. And people tease me, they go, "You have 4 bosses." And I said, well, I kind of do, but I really have Dondi and Daryl that really are kind of my day-to-day. They do my performance review, that kind of thing. But it was really important for the companies to know that we report to the top of the house, which is where we started and we've maintained, which is great. So on the left-hand side of the chart are some of the folks you saw in the video. These are our relationship managers. So each of them has responsibility, including myself, for a portfolio of companies that we work with. So depending on which company your faculty are working with, they may work with any one of our relationship managers. And there's a packet at the back that has my business card. So if you're not sure who to call, you let me know, and I'll make sure you get to the right person. And if we don't have the company you're working with in our portfolio, I'll assign it to one of the folks so they can help you through that transaction. So I come from a sales background. So if you think about, if any of you have worked in sales or in marketing, and there's like an account manager that has, a portfolio of customers in their portfolio they're responsible for, that's how these folks work. But we don't have quotas like salespeople do, but we certainly have financial targets that you'll see in a second. On the left-hand side of this chart are our administrative and marketing folks. I introduced you to Sheila a minute ago. We also have some administrative support folks. We have a data analyst that gets all the information for us out of ERPM, so we know how we're doing with our research contracts with the companies. And then also we have partner organizations. So you'll see in the bottom chart, several of you may work in some of these schools and colleges where there's a tremendous amount of corporate engagement. So ones that you would expect: engineering, med, business. A lot of the companies go to those schools and colleges because they're looking for engineers, they're looking for business people, they're looking to work with specific faculty in the med space. So we have a centralized view of business engagement with my office. So we support all schools, colleges, units, institutes, and I'll show you a chart about that in a second. But then we also have these partner folks, so a bit of a hybrid model where we also have points of contacts inside several of the schools and colleges. LSA is actually looking to add a person as well. It's a very big school, and so having more feet on the street to help their faculty and students with corporate engagement, especially with their new opportunity hub, really a great opportunity. And then Dearborn and Flint also have a BEC office. So they are a counterpart to our office, and they work with companies on their campuses as well. And it's a really great partnership that we have with the schools and colleges. The way I describe it is my team is about 1 inch deep, but a mile wide. These folks are about 1 inch wide, but a mile deep. So as we need to work, and we'll call John McLaughlin over at the College of Engineering and say, I'm working with Agilent Technologies, and they're interested in their electronics business, which faculty? So they help us to point us to the right faculty, and then they also manage companies in their portfolio as well. So this is kind of we call ourselves relationship managers because we're about managing these relationships we have with these companies. So you'll see some logos at the top of the chart, a lot of name recognition that you'll have with some of these companies. I do want to point out that many of them are not Michigan companies. Many of them are either international, most of them, probably all of them are international, but have a United States presence, or they're companies that are located in Houston or at California, wherever. We are not bound by geography at all. Of course, as you would expect, our closest partnerships are with the autos and the Michigan-based companies. We work with Dow, we work with, of course, all the automotives, we work with Steelcase, we work with lots of different companies. But part of our mission was also to work with small and medium-sized companies in the state of Michigan. And I'm a PI for a grant called MCERN, which is a statewide network that helps fund small companies in the state of Michigan and interns for small companies in the state of Michigan. So if any of your faculty are working with small companies, there's a grant that's available. So feel free to reach out because a lot of those small companies can't afford to do research, but the state of Michigan is the funder of this grant. And their idea is that they're trying to help the economic development of the companies in the state, and they're also trying to keep our bright students in the state of Michigan. And so the grant is not just for U of M, but it's for all 15 public universities. So, it's funny because people say you work with Michigan State and Western and Wayne, and I'm like, yep, we might compete with them on the playing field and the football field, but we certainly can collaborate in the state of Michigan to make sure we're doing the right thing to help our Michigan-based companies, large and small. We also work in the community space, so we work a lot with, as my intro mentioned, the Ann Arbor Chamber, as well as the Spark Community Economic Development Organization. We help them, and the MEDC, which sponsors the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, that sponsors the grant that I'm the PI for. And what we do is we help those organizations with business attraction. So if they're trying to lure a company to Michigan, anywhere in the state, but in particular in this area, we work with them to talk to the company about all the great research we do, all the wonderful students we produce. And so that's an asset in the community that helps them sell the state of Michigan. And they do all the tax incentives and all the other things that they can do. And then we talk about the asset that the University of Michigan is in the community. And then we also have liaison responsibilities to all your schools and colleges so that we are a single point of contact for each of your schools and colleges. And when I said you may not know who to talk to, this is all of my relationship manager team and the different schools in which they liaison. So they're a point of contact for you directly. You can call any one of them, you can call me, but this way we try to be as knowledgeable as we can about your schools and colleges so that we can help our peers in the group. So if somebody wants to do something with LSA, they come to me and say, who's a physics faculty I can work with, and I either work through the research office or I work with the development team to find the right people. And we try to be as up to speed as we can about the initiatives and the programming and the student opportunities and all those things so that we can well represent your schools and colleges to the companies we meet with. But then when we're ready for a deeper dive, we bring your faculty in and we bring the unit directors and whatever. So actually we do, for those of you that are old enough to know the Reader's Digest, we do the Reader's Digest version of what the university has to offer, and then we bring our colleagues in for the deeper dive. So financially, how are we measured, and what is the impact that corporations are having at the university? These numbers in the circles represent what was brought in from industry during the fiscal year 17. And this is not just the work my team does. This is the work that your faculty are doing directly with industry. These are our colleagues that are at the units that are working with industry, and my team that's working with industry. So close to 200 million in research awards, and that's where we would spend a lot of time with you, is bringing in the business from these corporations. How do we work with Procter & Gamble? How do we work with Ford? Ford has their Alliance program, and many of you may be aware of that. So the front end of the process, when the research award comes in, the expenditures, as you all know, is when the faculty actually do the work. We have less influence on that, but if we can build that pipeline on the front end, bringing those awards in, working together, then the expenditures, which is what the Office of Research reports on, the 1.3 billion to NSF, and what really shows the powerhouse that Michigan is. On the philanthropy side, about 42 million a year in fundraising for corporations. And of that, because the campaign had a goal specifically for student support, we like to talk about how much student support. So the 7.9 is a part of the 42 million. It's not in addition to, but it's specifically for student support, DEI initiatives, for fellowships, for scholarships, anything that a company supports, again, in a strategic way. And then 1320 visits, that's my team. So we've hosted that many, and that means we've had either a substantial phone call with them, just like you all do when you're having contract discussions over the phone, or we're out visiting the companies, or the company, when they come here to recruit, we also set up faculty meetings and all of that. So we spend a lot of time hosting and making sure that we're introducing our companies to the right folks. Sheila spends a lot of time from a communications perspective, so a lot in the way of a monthly newsletter that we have talking about key programs at Michigan that we think the corporations should be aware of. We have a 10-year annual report that we just published since we celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year. And actually, let me go back one chart. All the numbers at the bottom that show the increase, that's since the start of the Business Engagement Center. So over 10 years, we've seen this kind of improvement by the whole university in corporate engagement. So we're pretty proud of those numbers. I just wanted to show you that, that didn't happen in 1 year. That was over 10 years. There's a link to the annual report on our website. We also do what we call business engagement engagement reports. So we do a snapshot for, the president when he's going to meet with, Andrew Liveris, who just retired from Dow Chemical, or he's going to meet with Bill Ford, or he's going to meet with, Mary Barra from GM. We like to let him know that, they're a corporate and strategic relationship, and this is the snapshot. He calls it a dashboard of what's happening with the company, so that he can know when he meets with them, he's knowledgeable about what they do on campus. And then, of course, we're all into social media, so we're tweeting and we're Facebook posting and LinkedIn, which for us is a really important medium, LinkedIn, because that's where a lot of our corporate folks reside. So I also wanted to tell you a little bit about how, especially with the Office of Research, we work on a lot of research initiatives that are university-wide, like MCity and the work that we do in autonomous vehicles and mobility. So we worked with UMTRI and the College of Engineering and many partners on campus to put together a partnership consortium for MCity. So we all sat around a table, we brainstormed about what would a company pay to participate in MCity. We asked questions like, what do they get for that? Do they get access to students? Do they get to work with faculty? Do they get to fund their own research? Do they do a pooled research? So we think about all those ways in which companies can engage, and then we test it with companies. We'll go to them and say, what do you think about this? Would you pay this for that? Would you participate? So we test it with our companies because we have great relationships with a lot of our companies where we have that kind of relationship with them, or we can say, what do you think about this? We bring that feedback back internally to our U of M leadership and then come up with these consortium models. This one was extremely successful. When we first did M-City 4 years ago, we had 17 leadership companies that were paying $1 million over 3 years. Some of that money went to their specific research, some of it went to pooled research, and it also helped create the facility. We had to create M-City. We have to create the track that people can do work on. We have to collect the data. So all of that, it went into this leadership circle. And then we also wanted to make sure we didn't forget small and medium-sized companies that are doing a lot of innovation in that space. So we came up with a model at $50K a year over 3 years for smaller companies to be affiliates. So they don't get to determine and work with our leadership to have input on the research that's done, but they get to see the benefit of it, which is great. And then we worked with ORSP to have a single agreement that all 17 companies signed, which, as you can imagine, was a bit of a challenge, but we got there. Data science is another university-wide initiative, $100 million put into this initiative. Of course, they want companies to sign up to an affiliate program. So we said, okay, great, but what are they going to get for that? So you'll see on the right side of the page, yeah, you're right, side of the page, what being an affiliate to data science gets them. You know, the access to students, to be able to work with the faculty experts, class projects. They can, there's a graduate certificate in data science that was developed. There's a symposium that goes on. So all these things are why a company would sign up to be an affiliate with data science. Also, some other specific gifts in the way of working with industry. So some of this is gift, most of it is gift. Some of this is research. So just a mix here. I don't need to read them to all of you. So showing you the diversity in schools and colleges that we work with. Like I said, they tend to gravitate to engineering, business, and med. We talked to them about LSA. Agilent, one of my companies, was very interested in working with the chemistry faculty on some mass spec work that they do. The company makes mass spec, and they want to see how our innovative faculty are working with the mass spec so they can develop other features and products that the faculty said, you know, your product would be great if it could do this. So it helps them from a product development perspective, and they give $2 million in equipment, gift in kind, and $600K in gift dollars. So they're all different, but I just wanted to show you the mix of companies, the mix of schools and colleges, and the mix of both philanthropy and research. So on this next page, we want to talk to you about some of the ways that we can work with you and some of the questions your faculty may have with working with industry. The three things that are real roadblocks for companies working with the university, and this is not just true of Michigan, it's true of all public universities. Privates have different rules that they work by, but as a public institution, we need to publish. I mean, that's how our faculty get tenure and graduate students graduate. But confidentiality in publications can be a real problem because the companies, you're working on their most strategic projects. And if you publish and you say what you did, then their competitors can see they didn't pay for the research, but they get to see what was done so they can then, you know, take advantage of the work that's been done. So there are clauses in the contracts where we work with ORSP where there can be kind of a wait period, where there's a time of before the publication happens, where the company and the faculty and the student can all talk about, well, can you talk about what you did, but not necessarily give away the secret sauce? Or can you give us, you know, a few months lead time so that before it gets out there, we have the competitive advantage for what we need to do? So we worked through those things, but that was really a critical roadblock for companies doing research. And a critical need that we have as an institution, a public institution, is to publish. And then IP, as I mentioned earlier, companies are paying for this. They want to feel like they own something at the end. And intellectual property oftentimes does not come out of these research agreements because it's so basic, the work that we're doing on the front end. But if there is intellectual property that comes out, there are terms and agreements that we can work with Tech Transfer and ORSP to come to terms with for the company before they start the work. The more they're investing, like we have something called the Michigan Research Advantage. If a company will commit $750K over 3 years, we give them that ability to pre-negotiate IP. If they're just doing one scope of work, For $50,000 or $100,000, we don't negotiate. They get standard terms. And there are exceptions to all of this, but that's kind of the baseline for how we work. And what else? So I think that's it as far as kind of some of the frequent questions that we get from companies and actually from faculty as well. We have some educational resources that are available. So a researcher's guide to how to work with industry, some case studies, some, how do you do contracts with industry. So we have some of this information if you're interested in getting access to it. We're also on a new website that we're going to develop, have a tab that says for faculty, and it's password protected with your UMich ID. So you'll be able to get in there and get access to a lot of this information. And it's stuff that we want to help the faculty with, but we don't necessarily want our corporate people to see what we're talking about. And then we also have 4 companies to help them understand how they can work with us and some of the concerns that are a part of working with a public institution. And then also we have some sample partnership models that are also available on the website. So just so you know, some of these tools exist, so you'll have access to them. Sheila, our new website will be in the fall, I believe.
Oh, better be.
Better be, she says. Okay, so anyways, there's some stuff out there now, but we're adding more content. It'll be helpful. And I think that's all I've got. So I will open it up for questions. And so how do we think about companies in the new building? We're also doing that with the dentist school. Companies, the Ford relationship is, 50 years old, and it's, 26 million in research and all that kind of stuff. It's very unusual that a company, especially in Ann Arbor, like if you're Microsoft and you're working with the University of Washington and you have half the population of Seattle working at your company, you do things to create your brand in town. We don't have those large companies here. Our companies will do things at UMMA or the UMS. They'll do things like that, like the banks and whatever. But they do care about the interior spaces often. And that's a place where it's a smaller dollar item. They can put their name on a conference room. They can put, if there's a clinic or a lab or somewhere where they're trying to recruit the students that work in that space, or they want to give software or a piece of equipment, as you mentioned, so that people, their hope, of course, is that your students work on the equipment in the lab, and then when they go work for a company, they go, we really ought to have this Agilent equipment. It's pretty swift, So, like I said, there's always a motivation. It's not necessarily bad. I think it helps the students. You don't pay for the equipment, and oftentimes, or you get something very heavily discounted. So it's a win-win. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say you had a follow-up.
Yeah.
Yes. The question was, are we involved at all in the clinical trial contracts that are happening with industry? So George Mashur is one of the AVPs on Jack Hu's staff. So we've met with with George, and Connie's team is also in Fast Forward Medical Innovation. Has also been working with the clinical trials team. So I don't know exactly how much we've been helping with that, but I know it's a priority for the university to do more. So if there's anything, if none of us are involved, we certainly would be happy to help. Yep. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, how do we work with faculty that are creating a startup company? And also, when that startup becomes a business, how do they get to have the university be a customer? Do we help with that? So the first part is all small companies are eligible for those MCERN grants. So we have funded companies that are faculty startups. So there's a process that we can, there's a person that heads up that skip money, as we call it. And so I can definitely connect them with them, and they'll go through the usual vetting. The state wants to help. They're happy to help those startups. It's a little riskier for them because some of those startups maybe get bought and move out of state, but you know what? The money's available, so they get evaluated like all the other companies in the state that are interested in those dollars. So absolutely, or even an intern maybe to work with them. And then the second question about whether they could be a vendor to the university. So So the procurement group, again, because we are part of a public university, we have to vet all the people and make sure we're not showing any preferential treatment or anything like that. But we meet with procurement twice a year because the vendor relationship, not just for a startup, but for all the companies I mentioned, they all are interested in having, not all, but a lot of them are interested in being a vendor to the university. So that's part of what they get back also. They're investing, but they also get, so we can set up meetings for them with procurement and help them. And so the procurement folks are a little more open to taking a meeting if we request it than just somebody going to the procurement website. But they would certainly give them an opportunity to pitch their wares, if you will. But again, no preferential treatment is given to Ford Motor Company or anybody else in a procurement situation because of the investment that they make. But, if all things are equal and there's somebody who's invested in the university, I think procurement takes that into consideration, it doesn't steer anything anyway. And I also, so with some of the building conversations we've talked about, again, with procurement, some companies are like, well, I'll give you 10 dental chairs if you buy 10. We can't do things like that. We have to separate those transactions. You want to give us 10 chairs? Great. You want to bid on the rest? Awesome. But you can't, what is it? Quid pro quo. You can't, like, if I do this for you, you'll do this for me. We don't do things like that. Any other questions? Okay, great. So anything, Dave, from the group?
No, nothing online.
Okay, great. Excellent. So we'll let you out a little early, and you have our contact information. You can get access to our website. If you're interested in the newsletter, sign up. And if you have any questions that we can help you with your faculty or anything you're working on, I love the examples that people gave, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we appreciate the time. The more we can spread the word about the fact that we exist, the more you can help us spread the word to help your faculty and anything that you're doing as well. Thanks.